what we have in the studio. Joining us to give us more insight on that is one of our regular guests on Panorama, Mr. Samuel Chukwu. Samuel, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, Ruth, and Happy New Year, Nigerians.
Indeed. I see you excited this morning.
I am.
Okay, so I like to use myself as an example before we start this conversation. 2024, I refused to pen down my goals for the year, and I felt the consequences. So let's begin by, knowing how important is it for one to pen down their goals? Thank you very much, Ruth.
There are two ways to live life. One is to live life by default, the other to live life by design. The truth is, if you do not plan your life, things would happen that are beyond your control and would push you in a certain direction that you do not intend to. Now, that might sound quite harsh, but the good news is you could live life by design. And what does living life by design entail? As human beings, the way we've been created by God is to strive to certain ideals. You would agree with me that the way the world is now is not what it was 50 years ago or 100 years ago. Mankind and womankind have been built to progress towards a goal. So bringing it to an individual level, every year provides an opportunity to strive towards an ideal. And that's my encouragement to everyone, including you, Ruth, that you could strive to a particular idea. And the beautiful thing is this. There is no particular one ideal that everyone must strive to. It is subjective. One man's food is another man's pomo.
Exactly. So, well, I learned the hard way, so I've decided to pen down for this year.
Oh,
but going forward, looking at individuals, people will want to explore their innovation, look at how they can improve themselves, personally and otherwise. But how do you begin? It's the start of the year. Do you give yourself targets? Okay, within the time frame of this month, what do you do, really?
Very beautiful question, Ruth. The problem with most of the resolutions and goals that we have is that they are nothing more than wish lists. So on Crossover 90, a lot of us will write 1 million things that we want to achieve and we'll just throw it to the benevolence of the heavens. Like you say, God, just take this and we go to sleep. But if you must set goals, you must set what we call systems. And what are systems? Systems are those behaviors, those habits that would enable you achieve those goals. For instance, if you want to write a book, what can you do? What are the little things you could do? You could break it down into chapters. You could break those chapters into paragraphs, into pages, and tell yourself, I would write at least 50 words per day. There's something known as compound interest. I remember back in the days in secondary school, those mathematical concepts are actually life concepts. By the time you write, gradually you would notice that you're getting a page. You're getting 10 pages. The same principle can be applied to every other goal. But there's a concept known as SMART goals. Your goals must be specific. Your goals must be measurable. Your goals must be achievable. Your goals must be relevant to you. And most importantly, your goals must be time-bound. Remember, you can think big, but start small.
I like the fact you said time-bound. Let's also not leave out the financial aspect because some of these goals, Mr. Samuel, of course, it's more to do with finances.
Very true.
So you can achieve some of it without having a budget, a plan to achieve that. So where does finance comes in and how do you break that down? Because schools actually resume today. You know what I mean?
That's true. That's true. That's a very good question. And, you're already taking the R part. You've been very realistic. None of us was born with wads of naira notes or dollars in our hands. We all came into this world with nothing. What that means is that every form of wealth has been acquired one way or the other. My encouragement to most people is this. Do not focus on the parts that are not within your current control. What can you do at the moment? What are the things you could do without finances? And I'll give you an example. For instance, like I mentioned when we were talking backstage, I have a public speaking business. And I noticed that, yes, I will need a lot of capital. But what are the things I can do? I can plan. I can plan without capital. I could reach out to people without capital. You could start with the things that you can. And there's something spiritual about planning, I've noticed. More often than not, because there's a God that controls the universe. When you start with what you have, He will propel you to certain people, certain resources, certain things that would meet you. But if you do not take that first move, you will not meet those people. Another thing I would like to note is this. Those who spend an inordinate amount of time focusing on the things they cannot control are only preparing a recipe of frustration in a kitchen of indecision. So you must spend time focusing on what you can control and trusting in God that the things that are not within your control would align in your favor.
And talking about what we can control being, optimistic, with our country, Nigeria,
Yes.
by deciding to be patriotic. So how can Nigerians, put that spirit of Nigerianness, starting strong in the year and believing in our country?
That's a very, very brilliant and pivotal question at this point of our nation's history. Because of the economic situation, a lot of Nigerians are tempted to fall into the river of delusion and pessimism. But I'm encouraging Nigerians like myself to be optimistic. Of course, not blind optimism. There's an optimism of the sort that is practical and realistic. Every Nigerian should remember that well-famed statement made by John F. Kennedy: ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. And this is how it works. If each and every one of us as Nigerians can play our own role in building the Nigeria that we want, the fact is settled that Nigeria will be much better than it is. Just last night, I was watching a YouTube video of the famous president of Singapore, the prime minister rather, Lee Kuan Yew. And if you notice the history of Singapore, they were pushed out of Malaysia. But that is a nation that became one of the fastest growing economies in the world. To Nigerians like myself, the Nigeria of our dreams is possible if we play our part first on a personal level and then on a national level.
One block at a time.
Exactly.
One step at a time.
Exactly.
So what happens? Let's look at the odds that could play out.
Okay.
Nothing is ever rosy. What happens when challenging times shows up and you're almost given up?
Yes. You know that famous saying we've heard from childhood, that where there's life,
There's hope.
there's always hope. Life, there are certain things that are not within our control in life. And that's where, for me, I like to pray a lot. I believe that there is a God that answers prayers.
Yeah.
And what that does is that it takes away the burden from yourself. But besides that, you must also have the resilience that the darkest point of the night is the time that is closest to dawn. So no matter what you might be going through at the moment, we understand that things might be difficult. Always believe that the sun shall still shine once again. And trust me, it is that hope that will carry you through. People like Steve Jobs, people like Bill Gates, even our very own Femi Otedola and Dangote, they all have their dark moments. But what has made them who they are is that they can rise from the ashes and shine once again. One day, you will shine again.
So you're a life coach, and I want to, this parting question is actually for people who started the year on a very sad note, who don't even believe that anything good will, come out for the year for them.
Yes.
What would be your advice?
First and foremost, I would extend my condolences to everyone who is passing through a very, very dark period of their lives. But one thing I would like to use to encourage them is this: life is filled with times and seasons. There's a time of planting, there's a time of harvesting. And I want you to think back to a certain point in your life when you were in another dark period where you thought you couldn't come out of. And what happened? You came through. Weeping might last for a night, but joy will definitely come in the morning. Please take heart and believe that God that has allowed you to see this new year will take you through the year, and you'll have causes and reasons to shine and smile once again.
Thank you, Samuel.
Thank
you
you,
always
Ruth.
have a way to just light up everything. Thank you
very
so much for
Thanks
those
for having
kind
me.
words. Thank you. And I wish you a very prosperous year ahead. You shared your goals with me, and I
Yes.
shared mine.
Yes.
We're not going to tell the viewers, but we'll just pray about them.
Yes.
All right, so let's take a break. We'll be back.